What's happening, everybody? And do a quick video on login ag exempt and COVID exempt. And for you people out there, you know who you are. This camera is in a mount and it is voice fucking activated. Try it sometime. So as far as I know, that's legal. If it isn't, send me the legal literature and educate me on it. That said, let's get into it. I am not a Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration representative, nor am I a fucking attorney. I drive a truck and I fuck around making YouTube videos. But I'm going to share with you how I log ag exempt and COVID exempt. So let's start with the ag exempt. Basically, it is a 150-mile air radius from the farms. Not road radius, air radius. And there are apps out there to find that radius. So how it works is, let's say that you park your truck within that 150 miles of that farm. So when you get to work, you can technically just hop in your truck, go to personal conveyance, put in the notes that you pre-tripped your truck, and then put in, the way I always did it was put start ag exempt, Menden Farms, Cadillac, Michigan, raw milk, for example, right? And away you go. So now you can drive down to that farm. Myself, I always went ahead and went on duty, did my pre-trip, and then went to personal conveyance because I can spare that small amount of time on duty and it just makes it look a little bit better, right? If you get audited by the DOT or if you have an accident. So then once you get down to that farm, whether they load you or you do a drop and hook, then you would put in your new shipping information and new trailer number if that was the case, and take off, and you can run 150 miles away from that farm. Once you get out of that 150 mile radius, then you pull off the highway, preferably not do it while you're going down the road, and you go back to your regular logbook, and it just starts counting down your clocks just like normal. So you get down, let's say you're delivering in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You get down to Chattanooga, you deliver your load. A lot of people get confused on this and think that at that point you can run a 150 mile radius out of there. That's not the case. At that point you are still on your regular logbook. And let's say you're heading back to another farm to reload, then you would drive until you got back into that 150 mile circle again, and you would do the same thing, personal conveyance, put your notes in, and drive to the farm, get your next load, and you got another 150 miles to get the hell out of there. And that is pretty much the gist of how that works. I will say that it is, as long as you're servicing the farm. So if you are heading back to your yard for your 34, for instance, right? But the dispatch wants you to stop at the farm and drop your empty trailer. That means you can run your 150 mile radius in because you are servicing that farm. Now, running from the farm back to your truck yard bobtail, as far as I know, you're not technically supposed to do that. That's a gray area. Even my safety department at the last company wasn't 100% sure on it. But I will say there was a bunch of us doing it. And nobody really said anything about it. As far as hours restrictions, you know, as far as driving and your 14-hour clock and all that. So let's say you ran, 6 hours on ag exempt. You went in and you came back out. It was 6 hours or 5 hours, right? And now you just came out of your ag exempt circle. You're going to have new clocks at that point. So it's going to still show 11 hours driving because you've been under personal conveyance, correct? Well, after you hit your 8-hour mark on that point, you still have to stop now and take your 8-hour break because you're back on your logbook. When you hit your 11-hour mark on your driving or your 14-hour mark on your on duty, you still got to do the same shit. You got to take your 10-hour down or do your 8-2, 7-3 split, however you want to roll with that. But that still has to be done. Same thing with your 70, 80-hour rule. When you're out, you're out. Obviously, it extends your hours because you're running that many hours under Ag Exempt, so you're going to have that many extra hours for the week. You can clock out some serious miles. You can clock out some serious driving hours, you know, because if you figure, let's say 2.5 hours in on your radius, 2.5 hours out on your radius, for instance, there's 5 hours plus your normal 11-hour driving. Once you start your logbook back up again, that puts you at 16 hours that you can drive for the day. So you can clock out some serious miles. As far as I know, there's no federal rule or limit on how long you can run or how long you can work, as long as the math works out that you're in the radius and you're not violating your regular logbook. The last company I worked for had a rule that you couldn't drive longer than 16 hours or work longer than 16 hours for the day without taking a 10-hour reset. But that was just a company policy. Now we jump over to the COVID exempt. And basically what I am doing with that right now is medical supplies. And I will say right off that that is more straight up cowboy exempt on that one. Because unlike the Ag Exempt, you don't really go back to your logbook and follow the rules on that. And here's how that works. You get on your medical exempt load, and as far as I know, let's say you're 50 miles from where you need to pick up the load is where you park your truck. As far as I know, you can personal conveyance right on in to get your load because you're going to get it. So it's linked to that exemption. Same thing as Ag Exempt. You can do all your pre and post trips and all that under personal conveyance if you want to in your field. Myself, I do the same thing. I log in on duty and then go back to personal conveyance just because it looks a little bit better. Now, as far as running out long hours, say for instance, this load that I did here went out to Colorado. It was like roughly 1,200 miles. Technically, I could have drove the 1,200 miles all the way out there. And from what I hear, we have drivers here that do that. And props to them, because that's a fucking good day, man. Well, it was a drop and hook with another medical exempt load coming out of there. So technically, I could have drove 1,200 miles back. Now, do we really think it's possible or a good idea to run 2,400 miles non-stop? Probably not. It's basically a judgment call on that whole deal of being a fucking grown-up. So, it's a very gray area when you look it up. And the DOT, as far as I know, has discretion on that. So if you say I would have got pulled in last night at 850 miles on my day, you probably would have seen that as being all right, you know. I went on duty to do my pre and post trip. I had all my information and the trailer numbers and shipping information in my log. I did everything like it was supposed to be. 850 miles is reasonable. I believe that was 13 hours. I don't remember, but you know, something like that driving. So it wasn't a terribly long day. Now they pull you in and you've been driving for 20 hours. They got discretion on that. I think we could all agree that that's kind of bullshit. And that's coming from a trucker, man. 20 hours driving, that's too much. Now, another thing you need to consider on that discretion and being a grown-up and being a professional and making your own decisions on that is that if you were to get into an accident and it was fatal and you go into court and you're sitting there in front of the jury and you got to explain to these motherfuckers that you've been driving for 21 hours straight, that's not going to look good. And with the medical exempt, you basically are exempt of all the DOT rules as long as you are under that load. You don't have to take your half-hour break. You don't got to do your 10s. You don't got to worry about your 11-hour driving, your 14-hour clock, none of that shit. You just go. So it comes down to discretion again. Like myself, I pulled that load out of Denver. It was hot and needed to be back over here like fucking ASAP. And they got another hot one coming out that needs to be down in Chattanooga in the morning. So, did I run the 1200 back thinking that I was going to be a hero? Fuck no. Did not do that. I don't intend on doing that. But, when I stopped after 850 miles or whatever I did yesterday, I didn't take a full 10. I stopped for about 7 hours. I slept for about 6.5 hours. Which is actually normal for me. So I think you get my point. You don't gotta take your full 10 down to reset. It's pretty much just wide open cowboy shit. You gotta love it. I hope they don't end it. But now let's say I pick up this load over here and this road's a piece of shit, as you can see. I run that down to Chattanooga, right? And I get down there tomorrow morning. And now, after I deliver that load, I'm not any longer doing any medical stuff. I'm just going to get a regular old backhaul, right? Now it all goes back to the original deal. From there on, I gotta follow the motor carrier fucking rules, right? So, that means I gotta, if I come in there and I just drove 10 hours to get in there, right? And my clocks are going to be brand new because I've been under personal conveyance. So it's going to show up as a break. I'm going to have brand new clocks. That doesn't mean that I just drove 10 hours, I got brand new clocks, I get unloaded, now I can go reload and just go on about my day and run all my clocks for that day. I've switched to a different load now, so now I need to take a 10-hour reset or do a logbook split or whatnot to fucking get back in the game and start hauling regular freight. And that is about all I know about that. As always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all that shit. Don't forget to check out Trucker Path so I can keep my Trucker Path free. And it is awesome. You know it is.